Hey, what's up, folks? So the Pentagon's admitting a $6.2 billion accounting error when it comes to their handlings in Ukraine. Shocking. But is it really? Let's look over the times, such as Donald Rumsfeld admitting this before 9/11.
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And a couple years ago, how they're failing every audit, to look at how this shocking headline is really nothing new, but it's still shocking. Next, I want to talk about somebody that got caught setting fires to blame climate change. According to New York Post and others, a man has been arrested for just that. We'll read into that report. And then if we have some time at the end, I want to react and give my response to one of the funniest parts of the recent Trump-Brett Baier interview that had to do with his death penalty plan for drug dealers and reconciling that with his First Step Act that let drug dealers out of prison. It's truly funny stuff. God bless you guys. The show starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from our...
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. The Pentagon has found that it overestimated the amount of funding for ammunition and made a $6.2 billion accounting error. So I put together a little thing because there's been multiple times that the Pentagon has done this before, including apparently a day before 9/11. We'll play that clip in a second. But first, check out this compilation I made real quick of a few other times that they had accounting errors or just did some stuff that most people don't know. So with the Pentagon's $6.2 billion Ukrainian accounting error, let's look at some of their greatest hits and mainstream headlines. The Washington Post, classic headline, the Pentagon buries evidence of $125 billion in bureaucratic waste. $125 billion, no problem. The Hill stunning article, Defense Department fails another audit but makes progress. The Defense Department has failed its fifth ever audit, unable to account for more than half of its assets, but the effort is being viewed as a teachable moment according to its chief financial officer. It's a teachable moment. They just fail every audit they ever do. That's cool. And this recent classic, Pentagon sends U.S. arms stored in Israel to Ukraine. So they do a lot of stuff and they always fail audits. They've never passed an audit in their history, apparently. They're like 0 for 5 or 0 for 6, but that's just what it is. This almost seems like it's a made-up conspiracy theory, but I did my research and found out that even C-SPAN reported on it. But apparently on September 10th, or a couple days before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld said that there was trillions of dollars unaccounted for. You'd think I made that up. You think it's crazy? Here's a clip. Of course, I found it for you.
We are, as they say, tangled in our anchor chain. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And then just to prove it, look, C-SPAN reported September 10th, 2001, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld says $2.3 trillion missing. Wow. It's crazy, right? It seems like a conspiracy theory. It's like, whoa, where did you find that, huh? It's like on C-SPAN, just a basic video of it. But if they could get away with stuff like that, I just don't understand why things would change. I think people are going to like fight over Trump and DeSantis and Biden and it's cisgendered and who don't misgender me. You know, there's going to be all these little like cultural proxy wars. And the Pentagon's like, we don't pass audits. And people are like, shut up, Pentagon. We're too busy fighting over Trump and DeSantis right now. It really matters because Thomas Massey's the deep state because he didn't vote for his censure. You know, then like the Pentagon's like, we just like, I don't know, messed up to the tune of $100 billion, $6 billion. People are like, okay, Pentagon, stop trying to steal the show. We got outrage to do. Here's the lady who works for the government who dropped this news that they had an accounting error. She'll explain it away. I mean, it's just a classic mistake. It happens at businesses, happens at governments. It's just big money out there.
Following up from some announcements earlier this year, during the department's regular oversight of our execution of Presidential Drawdown Authority for Ukraine, we discovered inconsistencies in equipment valuation for Ukraine. In a significant number of cases, services used replacement costs rather than net book value, thereby overestimating the value of the equipment drawn down from U.S. stocks and provided to Ukraine. Once we discovered this misvaluation, the comptroller reissued guidance on March 31st, clarifying how to value equipment in line with the financial management regulation and DoD policy to ensure we use the most accurate of accounting methods. We have confirmed that for FY23, the final calculation is $3.6 billion, and for FY22, it is $2.6 billion, for a combined total of $6.2 billion. These valuation errors in no way limit or restricted the size of any of our PDAs or impacted the provision of support to Ukraine. And while the DoD retains the authority to utilize the recaptured PDA, this has no bearing on appropriated USAI or Ukraine PDA replenishment funding approved by.
Oh, thank goodness. I was so worried that Ukraine wasn't going to get their funding. Thank you so much for letting us know that Ukraine will be funded. She was like, "Don't worry, this does not affect our support." Really, it doesn't. I thought you just ruined the war with your accounting error. No, you're good. You're good to go for another round. Sign them up, Joe, Sleepy Joe, Creepy Joe, Slow Biden, whatever. Sign some more money over. It's all good. Anyway, apparently, according to my research, that appears to be Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. So she's the one who says like, "Hey, we just did this, deal with it." It is what it is, I guess, without getting on a 9/11 rant, because that's probably not the best thing to do right now. That Donald Rumsfeld clip, I was trying to research all the times the Pentagon has done stuff that's like similar to this. Obviously, the Ukraine thing, this is recent. It was in the news yesterday. $125 billion missing, according to Washington Post. Rumsfeld, trillions of dollars the day before 9/11. Like, that's not crazy. That's not crazy to people. When I was young, I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist. I would just call myself a truth seeker. I just felt like something was off about 9/11. Obviously, thousands of people died. I want to know what happened. I'm not just going to take the mainstream narrative of like, yeah, let's just believe everything I hear. Sure, I mean, that's nice. It's nice to believe trusted officials or whatever. But as a kid, I remember thinking like, I would watch documentaries, question things like, wait, they lost trillions of dollars the day before the Pentagon or 9/11. Thousands of people died. It's one of the worst, if not the worst, attacks on our soil. I don't know how to compare it, or historically if there's been worse in the last 100 years. It's pretty bad. It was a pretty bad thing. And that's what everyone does, is they're like, whatever, I guess I'll just believe whatever George Bush says because I'm a patriot. That really ticked me off when I was younger, because thousands of people in our country died. I want to get to the bottom of what exactly happened. And I'm not saying that's related, but it's definitely very bizarre. It's a bizarre thing that happened the day before. And there's a lot of bizarre stuff, but like all bizarre stuff, you're just supposed to not look into it and not question it and just say like, yeah. But to me, just from I don't even know if I'd call it karmic, but spiritual standpoint, if the people of your country don't even care to get to the bottom of something that bad or question it at all, then like what type of country do you think you have? Just because people like Biden or Trump or Obama, or they like George Bush? Like I just don't understand, like people in this country, like, I deserve freedom and liberty and I deserve things because I like Trump and I hate Biden. Like, why do you deserve anything? You can't even look between the lines of like some stuff like this that happens. You just go along hook, line, and sinker with the narrative. And it's like, if bad things like that happen in 2020, the lockdowns, one of the main reasons I want accountability so bad is not because I hate Donald Trump. He was just the president, like Fauci was at NIAID. So it's, there's blame to go around to Democrat governors and whatever. But what we certainly can't do is have Trump and Biden on a stage saying, I don't regret anything I've done. That's what Trump said on Brett Baer. I'll get into it later. He says he doesn't regret a single thing he did wrong during COVID. This is not the same as other people running saying we made an error. I made an error. We learned as we went, but I don't regret it per se, but I know that it was a mistake. I was trying to do my best. Saying that like, oh, just let's gloss over 9/11. Let's just gloss over 2020 lockdowns because Trump sold vaccines. So it's like, what type of country do you think you're going to get? Like, this is the truth. They don't care if you fight over DeSantis and Biden or Trump and DeSantis. Like, they don't care. The Pentagon can lose trillions of dollars and no one notices. No one cares. It's like, like people notice today and then it's going to be gone tomorrow. It's fine. I don't even know what people can necessarily do, but for sure, fighting like you're watching TMZ over Trump and DeSantis, calling them a meatball, that's certainly not a huge threat to the establishment. I mean, I guess people think it is, but that's the story of the day. I mean, that's what the Pentagon does. The government is above other people. They have unlimited money because they could waste billions and trillions. And unlike, companies that go out of business, they just keep taking your money or keep getting money from somewhere. So it keeps happening. all I'm asking for is a little bit of accountability. I don't seek the power they have, and I don't want what they have. So it's not like I'm trying to threaten their power. But if you're failing every audit, if this happens all the time and no one cares about it, it just seems like it's going to keep happening. There's until somebody gets in that really, like Rand Paul, I think, wants to audit the Fed a little harder. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. That's the story. They lost a lot of money. It's not the first time. It's happened before 9/11. It's happened years ago. They waste money, lose money. Money goes missing. They take your money. They lock you down and brainwash conservatives into thinking it's like a secret plan to watermark the ballots of the Operation Warp Speed. And, I just see it as a big circus now. Like the left fights with the right, that, Trump like worshipers fight with people who like DeSantis more. And, people like Donald Rumsfeld are like, all right, have fun, whatever. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm gonna go over here with the money and the money printers and the weapons. And stuff. It's like just a big circus. I don't know. I can't be that upset about something that just routinely happens. Although I do hope people pay attention and maybe come to their senses a little bit. Don't act so emotional, but people won't do that. What can you really do? Second story, I want to show you the headline. New York Post ran this, and a few other people did as well. 71, a man was charged with setting massive Yosemite Park fire, initially blamed on climate change. And I have to be very careful about this. And I'm trying to see if the book's around here. I have a bookshelf over here. I can't find it. Oh, here it is, real quick. Hold on. And this is not like, I get nothing from this. I just showed it today. This book is called How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff. It's a great book. It's thin. I make $0 from this. Like you can even see I highlighted in it. It's got graphics. The reason I care if people read this, there's nothing for me to gain besides people. It's a great book. It's been around for like almost a century now. And it explains how they lie with statistics, how tobacco companies lie with statistics, how big pharma lies with statistics. And the reason I would like if people read it is because it's thin, it's easy, but it'll arm you with the education to push back against the narrative. Like with the COVID numbers and the climate change numbers, I'm not saying people don't get sick. People do get sick. How they get sick, I don't know. I'm not qualified to tell you, but I could see that people do get sick. I get that. The climate change, like I technically believe in climate change because the climate's always changing. It's not a stagnant planet or whatever this is that we live on, Earth. The sun goes up, the sun goes down, it rains, it storms, the summer, winter. These are all climate changes. The climate does change. So I agree that the climate changes, but how much, why, can we fix it? Is God and, human nature more powerful than us no matter what we do? Can we clean the ocean? Do we need to cut this much carbon or what? Like there's discussions and debates to be had, but they're not having a debate with these two topics. And How to Lie with Statistics shows like 50 different ways that they've lied with statistics in the past. And it's eerily similar to everything they're doing now. It's a great book, good read. But anyway, with the forest fires, I'm not saying that the climate doesn't change, but this is not why certain fires are growing. There's also logging. There's also controlled burns that they do during dry seasons. There's also environmental people who come through and stop people from logging. There's also arson, or sometimes it's lightning, but a lot of times it's human arson. And if you have 20 times the amount of people, it's like crime in San Francisco. It's not linear. If you have 50 times as many thefts in a year, that's a problem from human error. Like humans are robbing each other, and you could lower that number. When it comes to arson, a lot of these burns start from arson. So if you have 1,000 times more arsons in a year, I'm not saying they do, but if they did, that is a huge part of the equation. You got to lower the arson, but there's no incentive for people not to do this. Obviously, you'll go to jail and you should never do it, but the media will basically say climate change. So as soon as the fire happens, they're not looking to investigate if someone lit the fire. What if it was a foreign country? We're at war essentially with a foreign country right now, and foreign powers doing a bunch of shady crap because we're backing Ukraine and they're doing a bunch of shady stuff and we're giving them weapons, etc. But in general, I understand there's a war. Like we're not going to pay attention to our forests. We're just going to blame climate change. I mean, that's like an open invitation. And I don't want to say this because I don't want it to happen. I love this country, but our media, and I don't use the word traitorous or treasonous because I think that word's overused, but it really is traitorous and treasonous to some extent. I don't think they're going to get charged with it per se, but just as an adjective, for them to just immediately jump on climate change when something happens and just not even look into it. It's like, maybe that's part of it, but also what if you're giving an excuse for someone bad to terrorize this country? You get what I'm saying? Like, it's that, like, as soon as a fire happens in Yosemite, what if it was an arson? What if it was a criminal? What, they don't care. It's like, oh no, no, it's the climate, and anybody else is. They're providing cover for arsons, basically. They're just like they're providing cover for crime, just like they're providing cover for all these evil stuff. Like, these people are. There's a reason people are so emotional in this country. I don't think emotion is the answer, like over emotional, but I mean, there's some sick mind control going on. There's some really sick politicians that just don't care, and this is one of those topics. Before I read the article, I'm not shocked that this happened. I'm shocked that they caught him, because why wouldn't this happen more when you immediately provide a cover for the narrative before you look into the real reason it happened? So let's just read the story real quick. A 72-year-old man has been arrested for allegedly starting a devastating massive forest fire in Yosemite National Park that was previously thought to have been caused by climate change. Edward Frederick Wackerman was busted on Friday of suspicion of arson for allegedly igniting the Oak Fire, which destroyed 127 homes, caused thousands of people to evacuate, and ravaged nearly 20,000 acres of vegetation in 2022. The suspect, is facing charges of suspicion of aggravated arson, arson that causes great body injury, and arson that causes damage. We'll see what happens with the case, but it's the same thing as COVID-19 and the health. Like, they're making everybody fat. People are overdosing of pills. They take away their job. They take away the school, the kids' recess, the sports. People start getting less healthy, and they never admit that health is a full-scale equation. When it comes to health, there's medicine, there's physical, there's mental, there's everyone has their flaws. Everybody struggles and gets sick at some point. But really, for them to just say it's 100% vaccines and 100% lockdowns, and like anybody talking about vitamins or like trying to work out is a bad person. This is the same thing they're doing with climate change. I'm not saying for the sake of getting censored, and I'm not saying for sake of accuracy, because I do think climate changes all the time. Like, a day, the climate changes 20 times. It's constantly moving. We live in a live planet, a live Earth, or whatever. Long story short, it's like, they do the same thing with climate change. They don't say, well, we stopped logging in the California forest, so there's tens of millions of dead trees there. We let the environmentalists roadblock us. We didn't do smart control burns. Other countries, including places in our country like Alaska, they do controlled burns because they understand how the forest works, and they don't just sit there and throw up their hands and say climate change. They're like, all right, well, if it's hotter, then we have to take that into consideration and be big boys and figure out how to fix it. The left doesn't really do that. They're just like, oh, it's so hot. It's not so hot that the forest caught fire. It's possible that it's drier and windier, and wind and dry weather will increase like the outcome for sure. But so will not logging. So will not doing controlled burns. And this idea that climate change started the fire, whatever they're saying, is insane. It's like, it's not like we're living in hell. I mean, if you live in San Francisco, it's pretty close, but temperature wise, it's not as hot. Jokes aside, it's like, oh, it's so hot. It's not 1,000 degrees. You know what I'm saying? It's not a stove. It doesn't just catch fire. Yeah. Wind and electricity or power problems or arson. Just Google, like, how many of these are started by arson? How many of these are started by lightning? Almost all of them, one or those other, or a power line breaking. It's not like so hot that it like I'm just sitting here and my paper catches on fire. It's like, whoa, it's 1,000 degrees in my room. It's like, no, it's hotter than normal. And that has a impact on the full narrative, but it's not the whole thing. It's pretty wild. And this is another thing that they censor. I think COVID and climate change are very similar in the sense of, they basically say you can't disagree with their official narrative. They act like they have all the science settled when it's obviously not. They allow no debate and discussion amongst bright minds in the field, and they use it to basically control the people, government control, energy control. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that they're now maneuvering, just like oil was in many ways. But it's just because you don't like what oil is doing doesn't mean the climate people are good. They're not good. They're not honest, and they have an agenda also. It's pretty obvious. So I'm glad that they caught this guy if he was the one who did it. And they should stop just blaming every fire on climate change, because they're basically It would be like if everybody was getting robbed in your neighborhood, and you're like, oh, they're not getting robbed because of the human, they're getting robbed because of the climate. You're basically telling the criminal, like, yo, the media will provide cover for you if you do arson, and we will blame other people. And then maybe we'll catch you, maybe we won't. It's a very dangerous precedent for this country to set. And I wish they'd stop doing it and be honest, but clearly they're not. It's like there's so many mind control systems going on. Once I was talking to someone yesterday, like it's not like there's one or two brainwashing going on. Like, oh, the left's brainwashed and they have this. There's like 1,000 mind control games going on from foreign countries, probably our intelligence communities, the media, the corporations, the right, the left. Like, there's so many games being played that the realest thing you could do in this world is untangle yourself. That's why I try to tell people to be calm and reasonable, because it's not like, oh, I left the left and I went to the right. There's a lot of people that went from left to right that are the same. Like, it's just like, whoosh, whoosh, and then they fall into the net. I'm not saying anybody's got it all figured out and perfect, but if you're not emotional, you can get through all of this, because it's like we're being propagandized from 1,000 different directions, and like it's chaotic. That's why so many people are mentally unhealthy. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. It really sucks. And in general, it's just worth thinking about. Like, don't stress yourself out too much, and know that you are, I wouldn't say a victim, because we're not victims, but you are being psychologically like attacked from 1,000 different directions. And it's a pretty crazy place and time. I don't know if it was always like this in human nature, but now it's like all these people, it's like, can people just tell the truth? Can we try this for a year? Like the intelligence communities, countries, etc., be like, hey, let's try the truth for a couple of years, instead of acting like there's Bill Nye says there's 10 million genders or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right play or like what you're trying to accomplish, but it definitely is not ideal for the people here. I don't know who benefits from this, but it's not us. So maybe just try not to do that for a minute. Third story I want to talk about real quick is Donald Trump was on Brett Baier. He did some sort of interview with Fox News, and I don't want to play the clip because I don't want to get copyright stricken. But I do have a reaction at least to one part of it, because I did see different parts of it. First one I want to talk about is he asked him if he has any regrets on COVID or if he'd do anything differently. Trump said he wouldn't do anything differently. I'm not going to vote for this guy. If it's just not happening. I mean, I'll vote for him over Biden if I have to, for sure. I'm not going to vote for Biden. I'm not emotional. I understand that Trump would probably be better. But as far as in the primary, like, you got to give me something, dude. This was one of the most costly things our country's ever done. It imploded our economy. We basically got treated like captured animals for 3 years. And I'm not saying that Trump did all that, but you don't look at that and say, well, I would have done this differently. Like, I did what I tried to do at the time. I would have been fine with it. I have no regrets because I was living in the moment at the time. But looking back on it, I wish I wouldn't have extended 15 days to slow the spread. Like, if Trump could say that, I shouldn't have extended 15 days to slow the spread. But he doesn't regret anything. Like, he's not a good person. I mean, I'm not saying he's like the worst person in the world, but this fanfare, the Comic-Con that's around Trump has so far exceeded the man that he really is and the leader that he really is, that it's another like mind control trap for people where they're like so obsessed with it. It's like an anime character in their head, but he's really not that guy. He can't even bring himself to say, some things went south. And even though it wasn't my fault particularly, like there could have been things that I could have countered a little better. Like, he has no regrets. How in the world does his base think that this is not going to happen again when he looks at everything that happened, the trillions of dollars printed, the $18 billion socialist scheme to Big Pharma, him looking at that graph getting tricked and saying, let's lock down for 15 more days, him telling Georgia that, like, none of that, no, not a single thing that you ever did, you would have slightly done better. You're cool with everything that happened. You're in on it, dude. He's in on it. It's obvious. Like, he doesn't care. Either he's in on it completely, or his ego and his pride is so enormous that he legitimately doesn't care about anyone. Either way, it's not getting a vote in the primary for me. Even DeSantis, as much as people are like, lockdown Ron, I don't like a lot of things that DeSantis did. I don't trust a lot of things that he did. I don't trust him as a politician. I like that people don't trust him, because that's how it should be. You shouldn't like, drool over him and like shake. Like, you should pay attention and actually counter what he's doing wrong. And DeSantis will do plenty wrong, so there's a lot for you to counter. But with him, he does admit that he did make a mistake. He's like, if I knew what I knew, I've seen him say this multiple times. Like, if I knew what I know now, I would have never done that. But I was acting on the data I had at the time, and I just thought it made sense. But once I realized that data was not real or it was manipulated, then I opened, like, he gives an intelligent answer about it. It's like, yeah, you messed up. Everyone knows you messed up. But you turn the corner quicker. And Trump never has turned the corner because he's just like a pathological liar. It's insane. It's like he's parroting like, basic like how to lie with statistics, debunkable data that CNN and Democrats are doing. He doesn't even have a single regret. I mean, how in the world can I support a guy that looks at one of the worst things that's ever happened in modern history? That was one of the most costly things to our agenda, the country, liberty. Not saying it's his fault, but no changes at all. The dude is like everything I've been saying for the last 2 years. I'm very thoughtful and very compassionate. I don't just hate on him. It's all true. So all the people that are crying and all the people that are lying and all the people that run away, it's fine. There's a lot of entertainment out there. You don't need me. But what I said is going to be true. And the more that things unveil, everybody's going to start to realize it, because you can't just like play Weekend at Bernie's with Trump the same way the left's playing Weekend at Bernie's with Biden. It's not going to last forever. Like people are going to see through it. But that part stood out to me. And also, I think that Brett Baier, I don't watch Fox News. So to be honest, I'm only vaguely familiar with him. I know what his name is. I know he does a segment. Have I ever watched Brett Baier? Never. Have I ever wanted to, like, have I ever seen a clip of his on Twitter where I'm like, that's really good? Never. So I'm genuinely just unfamiliar with the guy and couldn't care less about him or Fox News. But I have to say this, and people are going to cry about it because it doesn't just fit what everyone else is saying or whatever. I thought that he gave the best question that I've ever seen to Trump, and he made Trump look like an idiot. And I was blown away by like his journalistic play. I was like, that was smooth. So he did two things in a row, and he just exposed Trump's like just entire shtick, or like that something that Trump hadn't thought about. He asked him about what he would do about all the crime, and Trump said, well, I want to basically execute drug dealers, right? I want to execute drug dealers because drug dealers kill 500 to 600 people in their lifetime. And China's tough on drug dealers. Singapore's tough on drug dealers. So I want to make America tough on drug dealers. He said and Trump said very, very honestly, he said, the country might not be ready for it. I don't know if they are, but that's one of my suggestions, is to cut down crime and all this nonsense, the fentanyl, execute drug dealers. And Brett Baier goes, okay, that's fair. And he goes, well, your First Step Act, tell me a little bit about that. And if people don't remember, the First Step Act was Trump's like prison plan to let nonviolent drug offenders out of jail. And one of them was Alice Johnson, who was like a high level, I think, coke dealer, or like she was dealing like high level drug, like big money stuff. But, she was a grandma and like she didn't know what she was doing, or she just got into it because she didn't have money. I don't know what her story is, but long story short, Brett Baier asked Trump about Alice Johnson. And Trump's like, yeah, Alice Johnson's great. She's such a nice lady. And then Brett Baier says, well, under your execute drug dealers plan, Alex Johnson would have been executed. And Trump like was baffled because he never put the two together. He's got two different policies that don't work together. You can't make your whole, attempt to pander to Black America as like, yo, Alice Johnson, I let her out of jail. Like he worked with Kushner Kardashian on that. But like these ideas just don't work together. You could have the First Step Act. We need to let them out of jail because they're nonviolent drug offenders. You can have the stance of we want to execute drug dealers and go full throated at the gangs and stuff. But these two ideas do not fit together, because under Trump's plan, Trump would have to execute, or if that plan were in place when Alice Johnson did it, Trump would be executing her. So it's like he looked like a fool, and he is a fool. He's just never been challenged from the right. He's either getting crazy, psychotic left-wing interviews, or people that would probably lick the dirt off his shoes and say it was Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So he's never had like a real interview and like decent pushback. To me, that was the best pushback I've ever seen with Trump. And he was like, oh, she wouldn't be executed because it would start after. So we wouldn't go back and do it, which is true. But it's like, if the Alice Johnsons of the world come around next, you would execute them. So I thought, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I thought that was a brilliant video, like journalism. As far as the whole one, I saw certain clips. I haven't seen the full thing. I'm sure there were a bunch of moments. Someone said, I'm out. If you have to announce you're out, you don't have to. Like, I feel like people, they think it's like they're voting for their like governor. Like, I'm out. I don't want to hear this. This goes against my cognitive dissonance. I don't want it. I don't like it. I mean, I can't disprove anything he said, but I mean, just a simple analysis outside of my echo chamber really bothers me. I mean, I can't take this. I can't hear this. I got to go back to Dan Bongino. It's like, it's like, I get it. There's a lot of people saying the same stuff. It's cool. Dan Bongino's cool. But like, why even come to my show if you want some basic like take that everyone else does? I'm not doing it to be a contrarian. No one can say that because they're so tightly knit to Trump that they if they ever detach, they lose everything. So it's not like they don't believe what I said. they're probably saying what I'm saying here behind closed doors. They just can't say it in public because then Trump will freak out at them like he freaked out at Kayleigh McEnany. But it's the truth. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you like Trump or hate Fox News. I don't care. I don't watch Fox News. I'm not even joking. I'm not just saying this. I barely knew who the guy was. I know who he is. Like, I know who, like, you know, what's his name? Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes works for MSNBC. I know him. Have I ever listened to Chris Hayes? Never. I don't care. But you get what I'm saying? That the people that are upset with what I'm saying, you don't even have a rebuttal. It's a genius journalistic move to be like, you want to execute drug dealers. And Trump goes, yes. You like Ellis Johnson? Yes. You did the First Step Act to let out nonviolent drug offenders? Yes. How did those two ideas work together? They don't work together. And it's like, it's a really funny moment where I've never seen Trump actually challenged like intellectually. It's usually the left crying and lying and freaking out and talking about Stormy Daniels. And, you know, usually it's the right slobbering over their feet or acting weird. I think that guy did a pretty solid job as far as that question alone was a great question. I've never even thought about that. And just the fact that he kind of like outsmarted Trump there is like pretty wild. It's a pretty wild thing. And it's one of those things that this is where I stand on the election. I'm convinced now that I just don't think Trump is who people think he is. I think he's really funny. I think he's really successful. I think he's better than Biden. I think he's good at like oil, or, you know what I'm saying? Like when he's in his lane, he's good at doing business. But I just don't see it the same way people do, where I don't think he has huge conviction to his stances. Like I don't think he has like he'll go that way or that way. Someone said you need to get your facts straight. President Trump's the greatest and Biden's like, you sound like a robot. Like chat. I'm not trying to be rude to you, lady, but Chat GPT is more intelligent than you. If you can at least get your intellect to near AI, like I could talk to AI and have like a more honest conversation than I'm having with you. I'm talking about something, you can't counter it. It's fine. So you just fall back into like robot mode where it's like Biden versus Trump. Biden sucks. No one ever said Biden didn't suck. But like, if you can't think at least 1/8 of Chat GPT, you're going to get replaced by artificial intelligence. As soon as the Trump show ends and your whole illusion shattered, you're not even going to have a job because AI is going to replace you. And it could replace all of us. I'm not trying to scare you. It's just like, if I can talk to Chat GPT and be like, if I say the truth about this, does that mean I like Biden, or does that mean Biden's bad? Or like Chat GPT knows, it's artificial intelligence. It goes, no, you can be honest about this without liking the other side. It knows that things are nuanced. It's not just Coke or Pepsi. So if you're acting like a robot because you got tricked by one of the parties and it's Coke or Pepsi, and like you can't even listen to what I'm saying without being like, he's the greatest president, Biden's the worst. Like it's like you're having like a panic attack because like there's intellectual thoughts going into your echo chamber. And I feel like at this point, like maybe you're getting set up to get replaced by AI. Like somebody's just using you for shirt sales or something, and everyone can sell shirts. It's fine. I'm just saying it's like they're programming you to not be able to think clearly. And, you know, I think another part of the interview, thanks for reminding me, lady, I'm going to go harder at it, was they asked Trump about like suburban women and women votes. And he went right back to like, it was stolen from me. I'm the victim. And even if that's the case, it's like, if that's the case, why are you running again if you don't think it's possible? It's like he does think it's possible. So if you do think it's possible and you know that they're going to do a little stuff, but you have enough chance to even run in the first place, you have like, dude, his whole movement is turning insane. Like you have to appeal to people. That's your job. It's like being Hershey and being like, we don't even have to sell chocolate bars anymore. Like you actually do, because that's what you do. You might be able to do some other stuff, but Trump needs to appeal to people and he doesn't care. He's such a narcissist and he's so ego and he's so fake and he's so emotional and he's brainwashing his base to be exactly like him that they don't even understand that. Like any politician would be like, yeah, you don't have to pander, but you do have to appeal and get people to like you. With Trump, he won't even answer the question because he doesn't care. Just like people who support him, you say like, you know, what about this, or this? And they're like, we don't need to do anything there. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to try. We don't need to get women on our side. We like, we're just going to freak out at everyone all the time who doesn't say exactly what we want to say. And that's how we're going to win the general election, just by freaking out and acting insane. It's like, you might be able to win. You might be able to pull it off because Biden's so old that it's going to come down to who people hate the least. Like that's going to be the election. And people don't understand it too. Like, how do people vote that way? Because they don't slobber over politicians. They just hate you. So they vote the other way because they hate you, which isn't smart. It's just like, it is a thing. Like, there is a game being had and there is a lot of propaganda, and people vote for the person they hate the least. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that hate Trump and hate Biden. They know Biden's old. And then they're going to make that decision based off of their emotions or their policy, and they're going to pick one of the sides. But that's how most people vote at this point. It's like the lesser of two evils. So you can win an election. I'm not saying it won't work. I just think it's a psychotic strategy. Like, I've never seen so much entitlement. I've never seen so much ego. I've never seen so little lack of strategy. I think people bought into this narrative that Trump is like a literal god where he doesn't have to do anything or think about anything. So it gets to this point where people start acting like that. And you're like, hey, even if you like him, right? You like him. Do you want to try to appeal to other people and show them why he's actually better? And people are like, no, I just want to treat everyone like shit and just yell at everybody and act like everything is like good. It's like, that's not a good strategy, but they don't care because they just want people who agree with them. It's very entitled. It's very stupid. And it's a lot of the stuff too, like on Brett Baier, I heard him talk about the documents. The double standards are obvious. They obviously have double standards between Hillary and the Pentagon and Donald Trump. This is obvious. With that being said, Trump is kind of a clown. Like, I know people don't want to realize this. Like, I will defend him based on the double standards, but I'm not going to act like he's this amazing overlord. He's kind of like very foolish and naive with certain things. He's talking about, oh, I didn't have to, like, they're like, why didn't you give the documents back? And Trump's excuse was like, I had other stuff in there. Like, I was busy. I'm really busy. It's like, bro, if the feds come for you and say you have classified documents, you're too busy. You're too busy to give the documents back. You had close in with them, so you just didn't have time. Bro, to me, the whole movement's like a Fed trap now. And if you want to rock with it, that's fine. I'm not going to fight people. Like, it is what it is. It's just like, it just seems too stupid to be real. Like, you knew they were coming after you. They gave you a warning. And the best excuse you have is you had other stuff with the classified documents and you're just really busy where you don't have time. Like, it almost feels like Trump wants to get set up and he wants to get in trouble. And it's just like a whole show. I don't think they care about Hillary's emails. I don't think they care about Epstein. I don't think they care about the Pentagon. But it just feels like a circus at this point. Like, that's what you're going to say publicly on Fox News, that you just were super busy and there's so much other stuff that you had to do. I don't know. I'm so over the clown show. Like, that's your excuse for that. You don't regret anything you did or you would have done nothing differently during COVID. Like, it's the clown show is going to start disappearing slowly and slowly. And the only people that still buy it, like, the IQ is just going to drop further and further because it's going to just get weird. It's going to be like, well, Biden. And it's like, I'm not talking about Biden. Yeah, Biden sucks. But like, there's no counter to what I'm saying. It's just like, I don't want to hear. Okay, then go watch Golden Girls, except, Trump's your Golden Girl. It's not adding up. And I'll just say this, and I know most people will disagree that haven't figured this out yet, but if you want to win a campaign, I mean, you can win a primary in the Republican Party, but if you want to win a general election, you do have to think about it a little bit and not just act insane and just like make excuses for everything. And like, I've never met a campaign that's this arrogant. All right, we're like, even if you like DeSantis or Bernie or whoever, it's like, there's like people that can't canvass, and Scott Presler is like, do you guys know Scott Presler? Scott Presler runs around getting people registered. He does things that actually change elections. Say what you want about the kid. He knows how to get things that matter, get people registered, put up voting things, this and that, ballot harvesting where it's legal. Scott Presler is doing more than all of these Trump coattail riders combined. And when he goes to try to do this stuff, like actually register people, actually get these people to do this, a lot of people freak out at them. They're like, shut up, Scott. You're a fence sitter. How dare you? And it's like, bro, the Trump campaign is so arrogant. Like, there's literal, I think his name is like Yoshi the Patriot or something. He's freaking out at Scott Presler for registering people and running around like, that's how insane these people have become. And Trump retweets that guy all the time on True Social. It's like, if you register voters and do stuff that actually matters to like shift the scales in certain states, you're bad. But if we just throw up our hands and yell at Kayleigh McEnany and say stupid things and do stupid stuff and just run, like, that's the strategy that I see. is like I'm more like, all right, let's do this. Like to Trump and his base, it's like we can just do whatever, throw our hands in the air, say they stole all 50 states. Kerry Lake says they took California, saying we're going to spend a year freaking out about something that we don't care about in a year. And if anybody tries to stop us, they're the problem. If people think we need to win suburban women to beat Biden, no, we don't. We're so great. Everyone already likes us. It was stolen and everyone likes us. Yes, there are some cheating going on, but it's not like people don't all like you. It's the craziest thing to me where it's like if I was running for campaign and I had a campaign, I'd be like, all right, I understand that a lot of people like me. I understand that a lot of people don't like me. In order to win an election, I do have to appeal to these people. I'm not going to be fake. I'm not going to compromise my values. I'm not going to pander, but I'm thoughtful about it. It's called being thoughtful. Trump is very arrogant. Trump is very egotistical. Trump is very self-centered. And Trump is very narcissistic. So his supporters are now mimicking him. And it's very gross. It's like, even if you like him, you have to think about these things. Like when I used to make videos for Trump, I'm making them so people understand on the left. Like I want to convince them that Trump's not that bad. It's not like I'm just screaming at like build a wall. I never was that person. Even when I was helping Trump, I'm like, let me try to help Donald Trump by getting his message that makes sense, that's true, to the 100 million people who don't like him, because that's how we shift the scale, is not crapping our pants at an event. You know what I'm saying? Like at a Q event. So like, no, you got to get enough people on your side. You got to change the scales where the kids aren't so brainwashed. Like the kids are getting brainwashed. The kids are being transgendered. Like that's really happening. The shift is happening because they're going after certain kids with stuff. But the thing is, like, in order to fix it, you have to admit it's happening, which is the first time Republicans did this like 2 years ago. For the first time in 30 years, they admitted that the left was infiltrating everything. They just waited too long. So now they're playing catch up. But at least they admitted that it was happening. With all this other stuff, it's like if you try to admit that it's happening, people freak out at you because you ruin their like show. Like, we don't need to do anything because Trump has watermarked ballots. We don't have to, disagree with Big Pharma now because, it's a secret plan to save the world. Dude, the whole movement's like a trap. It's like nothing out of it is even good anymore. They're mad at Thomas Massie. It's arrogance to the fullest, where even if you love the guy, you got to know everyone doesn't like him. His approval rating's low. A lot of people love Donald Trump. A lot of people hate Donald Trump. He's probably lost more people than he's gained over the last year or two, just off of the sense that he's been so fake and annoying and cringe over the COVID stuff, that he's lost tens of millions of people who used to support him that will probably vote for him over Biden, but they don't like him. So at the end of the day, you don't have to pander, but it's nice to be thoughtful and a little bit understanding and be like, all right, Trump, we love him and a lot of people love him, but also a lot of people hate him and a lot of people don't like him, and we've lost a lot of people. So let's figure out how to get those people back. Let's give a knowledge branch. Let's tell them how we're going to lead better. Like that's a strategy to get people on your side and make it like a full-throated thing. But when you say that to these people, just from a strategic standpoint, they can't even hear that. It's like, no, we don't have to win suburban voters because screw them and screw everybody if they don't think it's right. It's like, why run for office if you don't think it's possible? Why? Why are you running if you don't think it's possible? Trump thinks it's possible to win and get over the cheating, or else he wouldn't run. If Trump thought it was so rigged that it didn't matter and he didn't have to campaign and he didn't have to spend money and he didn't have to talk and he didn't have to gain votes, Trump wouldn't be running. The fact that he's running proves that Trump thinks that it's rigged in many ways, but not so much that he can't win again. So he's going to try to win again, unless it's a controlled demolition and he just doesn't think it's possible. I know based on Trump's actions that he thinks that it's possible for him to win. So now what I'm saying is, if it's the same thing that liberals do with climate change and COVID. They say this fire is 100% climate change. This is 100% vaccine. And health is not how that. It's diet, mental health, physical health. When it comes to forest fires, it's logging, it's arson, it's electricity problems. This is the truth of it. When it comes to an election, it's not just follow Kerry Lake, say we're the victims, follow Donald Trump, say we're the victims. It's a full scale. Yes, you got to make sure the voter roll is clean. Yes, you got to do this, but you do also have to try to reach out to other people. You do have to look at the gaps in your last election and be like, listen, we got killed on suburban women, and it's not hard to see how Trump's losing these people. I'm not asking him to pander, but the guy has no humility, no self-accountability, And he'd rather just attack 1,000 people than ever admit he's wrong. Like, he'll get mad at Kayleigh McEnany over poll numbers, but Donald Trump won't get mad at himself over the fact that he gave $18 billion to Big Pharma and we got scammed into a 2-year lockdown in Democrat states, and he rolled out the red carpet for Gavin Newsom. Like, the guy has no shame. That's why people who follow him, like DC Drano, they're more mad at Thomas Massie for voting against a censure that doesn't really matter that much, more than they're mad about Trump and Republicans when they do 1,000 times more egregious things. So nothing really happens at all. So the point that I'm trying to get to, if you want to run a campaign to actually win the general, you can't just follow the Kerry Lakes of the world who are grifting off you and saying like, oh, look at this, maybe we won California. What's that message? That we won all 50 states, that everyone loves us, that nothing's real? It's not true. People don't like you in liberal states. People hate you. Los Angeles is liberal. San Francisco's liberal. Liberals vote a lot. I do also think that they're cheating in some areas, but I do think that it's still possible to win. So does Trump. That's why he's running. So it's like, now let's have a plan to get this message to suburban women. You don't have to change your policy or values. Just stop being so arrogant. Stop being so fake. Stop having zero humility. A moment of like human nature would go a long way if Trump just said, hey, you know what I'm saying? I understand that I did this and I don't regret it necessarily, but I do understand and I'm going to do it better. There's none of that. It's just like, you should like them. If you don't, you're the problem. You're the meatball. It's like fat people calling people fat. Like, you're a fat meatball. It's like Chris Christie's fat. Kayleigh McEnany sucks. Oh, I wonder why. I mean, we won all 50 states. Kerry Lake told me so. It's like, to me, it seems like a controlled demolition of the Republican Party. It's like, take these people, give them a few things, pull the rug out, scramble their brains, throw them out to just get slaughtered in an election, then have them cry about that for 4 years without even learning a single thing that they did wrong on top of everything else. And I know people don't see it that way. The mind control is complete. It's like the cycle's here. It's like, if we get them thinking about November 2020 for the next 4 years, they're never going to realize we scammed them before it. They're never going to figure it out. They're just going to repeat the same 5 phrases and Biden and Trump. And it's like programming where it's like, oh, you know, how in the world can you win an election if your president and the people around it aren't even trying? If you listen to like RFK people, I don't think he's going to beat Biden, but it's like, here's why RFK is a good show. Check this out. Here's a video you might like. Like, here's that. On the other side, it's like, if you don't like it, they just freak out at you. It's like, they're not making any attempts to really connect. For me, I voted for Trump. I have Trump, a Trump song. I have a Trump can opener. I'm not Bill Mitchell. I'm not one of these people that's just emotional and freaks out. Like, I'm an easy person to please if you just don't do like the craziest, most terrible stuff. If you've lost me, it's fine. I don't need to be there, but there's millions of people like that. I know the people in the Trump movement don't see it that way because that's what's leading everyone away. It's this lack of self-awareness. It's this lack of humility. It's this lack of strategy, this lack of understanding that we're not above the law of the Lord. We're not above the law of how human nature works. Like, Trump's not above it. You're not above it. We're not above it. It's not good to act arrogant. It's not good to just call people names recklessly without making any valid points. It's not good to act like a child. It's not good to have no strategy. It's not good to play the victim. Like, these are all things that the movement's doing, and they just think it's good because their leader is kind of like aimlessly, sporadically, just like saying and doing whatever with no consequence. Like, if you are going to say that Florida did a bad job during COVID because they have the 3rd amount of deaths, you're now a propagandist. Trump is no different than Anderson Cooper, CNN. That's data propaganda. He's not mentioning how they're counting cases, how they're counting deaths. He's not talking about the PCR test. He's not talking about how they're cooking numbers. He's not talking about how every person who died with COVID is, from COVID is someone who died with COVID. These are all public things that Dr. Birx and health officials said. So if you really want to free the people from this madness, which Trump doesn't, he's just trapping you, he would be like, well, this is the data and these are, dude, Trump is the worst with this stuff. He doesn't regret a single thing. He's worse than he was 2 years ago. He doesn't care. He's willing to lie and take a left-wing talking point just to make a personal attack at somebody. He constantly accuses DeSantis of things that he also did, like with lockdowns and stuff. They both did it. The difference is DeSantis woke up and admitted that he was wrong and flipped the script, and Trump still hasn't done that. It's called humility. Like, every human should have it. The ability to be like, you know what? when I was 21 years old, I don't regret per se, but I could have done this better and I could be a better person. The reason the movement's going to go into the ground is because it's like there's none of that. DeSantis has admitted his mistakes. Thomas Massey always knew about it. A lot of even Ben Shapiro admitted his mistake. I don't even like Ben, but he admitted he was wrong about the COVID vaccines. Like everybody with half a soul is being like, okay, if I did mislead people for a few years, there's something was like there was lies going on. Even Ben Shapiro, like he didn't fully admit it, but he's like, there's a lot of lies, and I got lied to by the government. And it's like, whoa, the government lied? No way, Ben. Whoa, who could have saw that coming? Big Pharma lied. It's not like they have a track record of crime and fines, but whatever. Yeah, that's brand new. But at least Ben has the humility and the integrity to give a half-assed apology. Trump doesn't do that. So that's, someone said the left has no soul. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, and I got to go. I don't want to last too long. You don't want to play this game with the left. You don't want to be like, well, the left has no soul, so I'm going to have no soul. That's dumb. Like if you're a Christian, if you're a God-loving person in some religion and you want to be saved, like you shouldn't give up your soul. You get what I'm saying? Like, well, the left has no soul. Like that's all the right could say. Well, the left acts like children, so I act like a children. They have no soul, so I have no soul. It's like, okay, then sell your soul because the left sells it. Like that's the movement. Well, they do it too, so I'm going to do it. Well, good luck. Good luck being a good person with no soul. It's like that should be known, but that's the game that's being played. But we'll see how it works. I personally think that interview and more to come, if people like, no one's really challenged Trump in the last 3 years since the COVID stuff. Candace did semi, Brett Baier just did. The dude does not tell the truth about this stuff. He just doesn't. He's so used to like everybody just licking his shoes that he doesn't even realize that his two policies are the exact opposite. On one hand, he's giving people a second chance from massive drug dealers he's letting out of jail because it's a nonviolent drug offense. And he's never even thought it through because he's around so many yes men that it's kind of wild that he's running on the policy of executing drug dealers when he's ran Super Bowl ads with a literal drug dealer in it, bragging that he got her out of jail because she was nonviolent. A lot of drug dealers are nonviolent, but if you execute a drug dealer, you're not executing because he's violent. You're just executing him because he's a drug dealer. Like the two Trump policies can't exist. But it's when he's asked about it, it's not like he has a good answer. He's never thought of this stuff before. And I'll end on this note. The people that are doing this to Trump, I feel like you're the most mean friend and the most mean supporter because it's almost like you're just fleecing this guy of everything he has left. He's getting older. His voice is getting more croaky. He doesn't have the conviction he used to because he doesn't tell the truth anymore. You could hear it when he talks. He doesn't even believe himself. Like, I don't see it as you're so nice, like just lying to Trump all the time. Like, oh, I'm so nice because I just make believe a world that doesn't exist. I feel like the people that are closest to him are just fleecing the guy dry. They're just fleecing him dry, getting as much money and opportunities out of him as possible, as much, fanfare around not taking accountability themselves and just believing that he's going to do something. And when it's all said and done, they're just going to suck everything out of Trump until Trump can't go anymore. And then they'll move on to the next thing. So it's like, I don't want to watch people just suck Trump dry of everything he has, but that's what I feel like the yes men are doing. I don't think what I'm doing is a mean thing. I don't hate viciously the Trump family. They're cool. He did a lot of cool stuff. Like I want Trump to get better and more. Like I'm not hating on the guy's entire life or his identity, but the people that won't call out this stuff, you're not helping him. You're like living in a fantasy fiction world of people that think he's a Captain America or a Marvel movie with watermarked ballots everywhere, you're fighting the deep state when your eyes are closed. Like you're not helping him. And you're not a good person for doing that. You're basically just fleecing the guy dry. It's very selfish. It's like how many free Trump shirts can I sell? How many Trump sweaters can I sell? How many donor meetings can I go? How many times can I go to Mar-a-Lago with Trump? How much am I benefiting off the Trump movement? It's like I don't see this element, and it's okay to make money. I hope people do, but do you really believe what you guys are saying? Like, are you listening to what he's saying? Do you really believe the excuses you're making? Like you don't. You're just fleecing this guy dry. You're sucking everything out of him you can. And when you look at the people surrounding him now, this is one more thing. I don't see good people around him. It's not like everybody's got rhinos and neocons, and I'm not going to hold Trump to another standard of someone else, but like Kayleigh McEnany did a good job. She's someone that should probably get another job. He's already burned a bridge with her because she shared a poll number on Fox News. Like, I don't know who's even going to work in the Trump administration if he gets in, because the people that are closest to him are some of the worst people. It's not like he's got to make, like, anybody with half integrity for themselves or half a brain is not allowed to be there anymore, because it's like a simple question or a simple truth statement is like offensive now to a group that's gone so far from reality. So I don't even think he has like a real plan. I just think the people near him have a plan that they want him to have the plan. So that's the plan. And it's like, I see it personally as just kind of selfish, where it's like, don't hate the guy. You don't have to be nasty to him, but like, are we watching the same stuff? Like him saying he wouldn't change a single thing. If you don't think a single thing should have been changed with the COVID, you're a communist. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like, MAGA is a socialist communist movement if nothing changes. Like, that's what it is. Operation Warp Speed, socialist. Giving everyone a UBI check, socialist. Trillions of dollars printed for the CARES Act, socialist. That's what led to inflation, was the fact that they printed too much money in 2020, 2021, and 2022. But a lot of it is holdover from 2020. This is not a capitalist movement. It's not a conservative movement. It's not a patriot movement. It's not America First. It's a Trump worshiping socialist communist movement if nothing changes. If this guy can't even look at the camera and say, hey, we printed too much money. DeSantis says that. Thomas Massey says that. Everyone knows that. Any serious libertarian says that. Peter Schiff says it. Ron Paul says it. Any economist with half a brain will tell you that you can't just print money like that. But Trump will look into the camera and be like, I wouldn't change a single thing. It's like, so you're a socialist now. You're not, like, nothing that we care about matters over, like, you can't trust a leader that looks at that year and says he wouldn't change anything. That means that the movement is a socialist movement now. That's okay. As long as, like, we don't take accountability for it. It's such an obvious trap. And as always, the solution is just to, like, be honest about it. If you can't be honest about politics and you're more interested in worshiping the guy, there's no chance this stops. There's no chance. You're guaranteed to fail. Give yourself a shot. Give the country a shot. Give your future a shot. Be honest. That's really all you have to be. Whether it's Trump, DeSantis, if DeSantis has donors and you don't like the fact that they're influencing his thing, call it out. But if Trump also has donors and you act like it doesn't exist, I'm not saying DeSantis is some amazing hero that you should worship. He's not. You should pay attention. I just think he's more pragmatic and strategic, and he wields power and he'll actually do stuff. That's my opinion, but I don't trust him. And I'll be right there next to you if he does some weird stuff, standing right with you to call him out. But the difference is, when it comes to Donald Trump, I'm still there. That same person I would have been with DeSantis, and not no one else. There's a lot of people waking up, but, like, the Trump movement's not there. There is no morals. There are no values. There is no objectivity. It's all double standards, hypocrisy, emotions, and making excuses for things that are so the antithesis of our movement. Because if that guy does it, it's okay. But if DeSantis did it, it's wrong. If it's wrong if DeSantis did it, it's got to be wrong if Trump did it. If it's right when he did it. Another thing they're saying now is, like, anybody who's against tariffs works with China. That's not true. I'm sure there's some Chinese influence somewhere, like, obviously. But as far as tariffs, most libertarians and most conservatives are against tariffs. I get the side of both, but the American taxpayer pays for tariffs. The reason that conservatives are often against tariffs is because you're paying for it in many ways, not China. And the idea is you're going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes so that people are incentivized to use American businesses over China. But in many ways, it's still a tax on the taxpayer. So if a libertarian like Thomas Massey disagrees with Trump's tariffs, you don't have to agree with them. But it's not a Chinese thought process of having a free market. Like, it's a free trade. That's how they get you. It's like, oh, we got to print money for COVID. It's a Trump check. It's a tariff. Maybe they work, maybe they don't, but this can't be a movement of, like, if you have free market principles, then you must be a foreign. It's like, no, there's millions of people who believe that based on basic economics. And then there's people who don't. It's all good. Just let's not get too carried away with it, in my view. God bless y'all. Dream Rare podcast out. I'm only going to run my final segment for like 30 seconds, but I don't know why I brought the mic close. I didn't need to. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. I'm going to chop this up into short, digestible clips later this week. Have a good one. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support